Well, hello, everybody. This is Charlie Jewett with the Renovating Retirement Podcast, and I wanted to do a recording on home equity planning, something I've now been doing for 17 years. And it's a bit contrarian. Most people have been taught to pay off their mortgage. And as you'll see today, with just kind of a little bit of contrarian thinking and maybe a question to say, really, where'd that come from? Or should we still do that? Or when should we do that? And when shouldn't we? Sometimes people choose not to. Most of my clients don't pay off their mortgage. I've had 15 homes. I haven't built equity inside of any of them. I like to build equity. I just like keeping it somewhere else where it's safe and makes more money. And so what you'll find if you study me, I'll give you 2 minutes on this, is I'm kind of famous for these three models: the merit planning model of continual improvement. So mortgage planning, estate planning, retirement planning, insurance planning, and tax planning. And the strategy we're looking at today is a mortgage planning strategy. Now, I decided to be the world's first financial architect back in the day, 2005, and studied all five of these industries, blending them together. And some really unique strategies came out of that. The three N's we won't talk about today: in case accounts, income accounts, and increase accounts. 5 lives of retirement. Interestingly, the mortgage planning model sets you up for the 5 lives way better, not to pay off your mortgage or not to pay cash for a house. But we don't know if you're going to have a long life, short life, rough life, sick life, or just die peacefully at 120 and move into the next life. But a great financial plan and great financial decisions, like how you handle mortgages, really should prepare you where no matter which one of those happens, your family's going to be fine. If you did a search for me online, you'd find my books and teachings and things like that. But probably the most robust place to get more information would be my podcast. There's 185 episodes, and mortgage planning, I think, has 7 or 8 episodes just dedicated just to that. Now, I learned this from an author in 2005. I paid $6,000 to go to Utah and watch a 3-day workshop. I liked it so much, I went back 7 times and actually worked with the guy that did the workshop. I worked with his sons for about 8 months. They saw all of my clients for the first 8 months while I learned from them. But this book was called Missed Fortune. It was over 500 pages, very long. The author wrote another book. Douglas Andrews wrote another book called Misfortune 101. It's about 250 pages. I decided early in my career, why don't I just make the Cliff Notes version of it something really easy? And by the way, you can have a free copy of this PDF version. It's only 28 pages long. You could read this in an afternoon very easily. And this book has helped, I don't know, thousands of families at this point, I would imagine. I don't know if it's 10,000, but thousands of families, certainly all the people that myself and my team work with. The 2 ways to be debt-free is my 28-page kind of summary of this strategy, and just makes it really easy to understand. Everybody who reads the book has a pretty big epiphany from the math that's going on. Now, what are the basics? We've been told to pay off your mortgage or try to put a big down payment so you have a lower payment on the house, or basically that mortgage interest is bad. We've been taught. And so I questioned that at one point. I just thought, really? Now, if you have $100,000 sitting in good investments, and that's kind of the key, by the way, as an investment advisor and financial advisor, the person who gave you this video might be in the industry. Really the key is being able to make 6 or 7% without the risk of the market, hopefully 6 or 7% tax-free, like all good advisors can teach. I understand that Edward Jones, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley don't teach that, but popular doesn't mean right. The best advisors out there teach tax-free retirement planning and can easily get you 6, 7, 8% completely tax-free or double-digit returns in market alternatives when your investments are doing well. So if you have $100,000 making 7% a year before compounding, so you're making $7,000 a year, should you ever take that money, stop it from earning interest, and use it to pay off mortgage debt that's only costing you 4%? Or if you can get it at 2.8 or 3, it's even better. But should you ever give up making $7,000 a year to stop paying $4,000 a year just because some popular teacher says so, or it's what our great grandparents did after the Depression? We want to look at the math and current interest rates to make our decisions, not really traditions from 80, 90 years ago. So I'd never stop $100,000 of my money earning $7,000 a year to try to save $4,000 a year. Just doesn't make any mathematical sense. How about monthly? They tell us to pay down your mortgage, like put extra principal towards it. If you had an extra $1,000 a month, should you use it to save 4% per year by getting rid of your mortgage, or 3% or 2.8%? Or should you use it to earn 7%? In other words, should you build up your investments until they're equal to your mortgage debt and be debt-free that way? Or should you actually try to get rid of the liability because, gosh darn it, it's costing, 2.8, 3, or 4%? If your investments are earning more than your mortgage interest, is there really any reason to pay down your mortgage debt? And what you're going to find out is No, there just isn't any reason to do it. It's actually fairly dangerous. This comes from something called arbitrage. So let's talk a little bit about arbitrage or a spread. If you're borrowing money, you're renting it. You're renting someone else's money, the banks using your house as collateral, let's say at 3%, and you're earning just 4.5% on that money. You're making a 50% rate of return. How do I know that? Arbitrage is powerful, by the way. This is the cousin to wholesale retail, which we've totally proven works to build wonderful businesses. Arbitrage is just what banks and insurance companies do. For every $100,000 that you rent, right, $3,000 is the cost to rent it at 3%, and you're earning $4,500. Now, if you can earn 6 or 7%, it's amazing. But even here, the profit of $1,500 divided back into the investment out of your pocket, it only cost you $3,000. Sure, you're using leverage to control $100,000. That's kind of the key. But your out-of-pocket investment is $3,000. And by the way, it's over 12 months. It's not even upfront. So that's probably skewing the returns here, which is cool. But you invest $3,000, you make $1,500. That's a 50% rate of return. I can't find a better investment than arbitrage. If I could borrow $6 billion tomorrow at 3%, I'd do it in a second. Borrowing at 3% and earning 6% means you're earning a 100% rate of return. And just so you know, in my 17 years experience, most of the people that I've seen are making 7 or 8% totally tax-free in investments that can't go backwards when the market goes down. So forget what people say about the stock market or, it can earn this or can earn that. The stock market sometimes goes down. It's not safe. You can't count on it. We don't put home equity in the stock market, or we don't take money that we could use to pay cash for a house and put it in the stock market instead, because it's not safe. It might go down. We want to use investment and cash accumulation options that don't go down. But 100% rate of return, I know a lot of people making 150 to 200% rate of return on their arbitrage strategies because interest rates cost low. They have a low cost, and they might be tax deductible. Imagine borrowing at 3% and you can write it off every year. That'd be awesome. Well, you can do that when you buy a house. At the recording of this, you can have a mortgage up to $750,000 and have it be completely tax deductible. I use that strategy all the time. So this is why I do what the bank does, not what they tell us to do. What do banks do? They try to borrow money from us at low rates. They pay less than 1% on savings accounts. They pay 2 or 3% on CDs. Then what do they do with the money? They turn around and lend it out at 4 or 5% on car loans and things like that, personal lines of credit. Banks want to be in debt, and they would be out of business without those liabilities. So having a liability that you can pay off is not the problem. So what you'll find in my book, which again, you're welcome to have a free copy of, whoever gave you the video, just ask them. They'll send you a link or a PDF version. I'm teaching there's 2 ways to be debt-free on a house. You could have the traditional method, which is liabilities are bad. Don't be a bad boy. Don't be a bad girl. You shouldn't have mortgage debt. Bad, bad, bad. Get rid of it. Pay the extra principal every month. If you sell a house, pay cash for the next one, these kind of things. But the whole goal, say your house is worth $500,000, the whole goal in the traditional method is no liabilities. Don't owe anyone anything. They say you're going to be a slave. You don't even really own your home and all these negative things. By definition, if you owe 0 on your house and all your equity is just sitting inside of it, you don't have an equity savings account, which we'll talk about. And when you take this $500,000, which I'll do in the book, so I won't really cover it here, and run it through just the 4 tests of a wise investment, liquidity, safety, rate of return, and tax advantages, it fails pretty much all of them. Low, low, no, no. That's pretty bad for an investment. I understand it's traditional. That's why I gave it this name. But when you have another choice, like if you're going to pay cash for a house, you certainly have a choice whether to have a mortgage or put all your cash inside the house. I mean, if you put all your cash inside the house, it can't earn interest anywhere else. You're killing your sheep. There's no chance for it to earn compound interest for the rest of your life. You've retired that cash. And at best, you're saving a tax deductible 3% or 4% as I'm recording this. As it turns out, when I studied the wealthiest people, not the most popular, not the ones that write the books on Oprah, but the wealthiest people, and then businesses and not-for-profit organizations, banks and insurance companies, things like that, they don't think liabilities are bad, especially if they have the money to pay it off whenever they want to. So there's no slavery. All they're really looking at is how much am I paying to rent the money? How much am I earning on my investments? And is there an arbitrage? And if it ever switches up where you're paying 5 and earning 3, you just pay off the debts. It's easy. Put yourself in the power position. So let's say you're a veteran. Veterans can still do 100% financing. If you have a house worth $500,000 and you do a loan for $500,000 at 3%, Your equity savings account's making 5. Again, ours are making 7 to 8. But if you're making 5, here's our arbitrage. There's a spread there making a killer rate of return. I think it's 66% rate of return or something like that. More importantly, we have high liquidity, high safety, high rate of return, high tax advantages. Here's the big shocker. Having debt and having the money sitting somewhere else where you could pay it off is way more conservative than not having the liability. People do this because they've learned it through their parents or through their great-grandparents or possibly through religious beliefs or religious traditions, maybe is a better way to say that. The reality is, to be a good steward of your money would be to keep it earning interest. And if keeping it earning interest is actually safer and more conservative than the other option, this is a win-win-win all around. And that's what you're going to learn in the book. Now, you could also watch my video. Whoever gives you this video and sends the book to you can send you the link to my YouTube channel where you can watch. This was me teaching in Utah. Utah's a pretty conservative state. I've done a lot of work there, even though I live in California. I've done a lot of work in Utah. And believe it or not, I'm the guy that comes to Utah and says, never pay off your mortgage or never pay cash for a house, or here's why you want to have liabilities. And usually people are kind of shocked in the beginning. And then by the end, it makes total sense to everybody, no matter what their background was or what their beliefs were before they heard it, because, math always makes sense. There's no religious belief out there that would say 2 + 2 is 5. It's just 2 + 2 is always 4, and we can get out 4 apples and prove it, right? So when someone teaches you math, we don't have to have an opinion about it. We just embrace the epiphany. Go, thank you so much, because the truth will set you free. And this is all about truth that sets people free. It's about 50 minutes long. You can see me teach it from beginning to end. There's no cost for this, of course, and it's a really helpful tool along with the book and conversations with me or people that I've trained. Now, I'm going to show you some examples of what this might look like. And here's my assumptions for these examples. I've worked with every possible scenario you can imagine, but my assumptions for these examples are that someone lives in a home, a really nice home that's worth $1 million. And I had offices in Honolulu and California, so that's kind of why I use big numbers. It's just what I'm used to. So if your house is worth $100,000, you can just, do the math and cut it by 10, divide it by 10. So home's worth $1 million and they sell it. They own it free and clear because they were told to do that. They've made an incredible accomplishment in their life, and they've got this house owned free and clear, which is awesome. It's my second favorite way to own homes, free and clear. I'd rather have it free and clear than a small mortgage on it. I'd rather a big fat mortgage or nothing. Cost of selling 8%. Why do I say that? 6%, 3 to each realtor, and then 2% for closing costs. Just a good average from my time as a realtor, time in the mortgage industry. You can sell it yourself. That's fine. But the new home cost would either be $920,000 or $1 million, which I'll show you why there's a range. So this is someone who's selling a house with equity and buying the next one and saying, should I pay cash or not? And then I'm going to have a couple examples. What if someone has a small IRA? And what if someone has a big IRA? No. How do IRAs get involved in all this? Why would I even mention that? Well, there's the group of people that has kind of been taught to pay off your mortgage, tends to be in their 40s, 50s, 60s. Doesn't mean you can't learn anything from me if you're in your 20s or 80s. But that group of people, especially 50s and 60s that are kind of nearing retirement or in retirement, it was really hammered into their minds that mortgages are bad, and they've saved up assets for retirement that are pre-tax. And our country's in trouble, and taxes might be going up. So we're going, oh my gosh, what do I do with all these taxes I have to pay? And then I have this mortgage, or I have no mortgage because I did the right thing. And what happens, like I showed you in the beginning, when I studied mortgage plan, estate plan, retirement plan, insurance plan, and tax plan, I studied all 5 industries instead of just one, I found some efficiencies. One of them is if you use IRA money to pay for a new mortgage when you buy a house, it cleanses all of the taxes on the IRA money. You can literally get all the money out of your IRAs with no taxes at all if you use mortgages properly. So let's go from there to looking at some examples. So here's just a spreadsheet, and I can't find software that does what I like, so I do it myself. Before we had washing machines, people used to do laundry in the river and they'd scrub, and it might have been better. They got sun, they had fresh air, and they were talking to their friends and doing exercise. So I don't know. I just like to get results, and I can't find a software that does it, so I do it myself. So here we go ahead and center these, make it a little bit easier to see. We've got an equity protection plan, and let's say someone's going to pay cash for a house. All right, they pay cash for a house. Now, why do I say $920,000 house? Well, If you sell a house for $1 million and you use realtors, there goes 6%. You got closing costs of 2. You only end up with, 92% of the money. You end up with $920,000. So you can pay cash for a house, make a down payment. Of course, your mortgage doesn't go up or down. If you had no mortgage before and no mortgage now, everything's the same. So the only thing really going on financially is I got a house. 30 years from now, if I pass away, say you're 62 and pass away at 92, we've got a house. If it's growing at 6%, you might leave a home to your loved ones that's worth $5.2 million. And there's nothing wrong with this. Like, nobody has to do home equity planning. Like, just like on a Sunday, you don't have to put whipped cream or peanuts or cherries and chocolate or anything. But I like ice cream with toppings. I like my food with salt, and the salt is a small thing, but it tastes a little bit better, So these are, like optional strategies that some people use to make life amazing, but no one has to do it. So you could pay cash for a house and take all the money out of your IRAs and pay full taxes on them and do it the old way if you wanted to. But I like to show people their options in a way that they understand it. I like to show them the math and have them go, I never thought of that. Sounds too good to be true. I go, I know, but it's true. It's kind of cool. Well, what could you do if you were going to use a mortgage? We could actually buy a house for about sell the previous house for $1 million, right? We end up with $920,000. You could actually buy a house for about $1 million. So you can actually get more house this way too, which is kind of cool. Better lifestyle, higher appreciation, leave more to the kids or heirs down here. But what might we do? We might put a $250,000 down payment on this new house. Am I saying that because I love making down payments and I want my money sitting inside of a house, or I care about the lower mortgage? The answer is no. I'm actually using this for a very specific reason, which is right now, at the recording of this, we're allowed to deduct up to $750,000 of mortgage debt. So I'd probably only put down $200,000 if I were a regular person. And if I was a veteran, I probably wouldn't put down any money, but I want to show maximum deductions, kind of a very efficient plan. Your house is worth $1 million. You put down $250,000, which means behind the scenes, we've got a mortgage of $750,000. Now I used an average rate of, I don't remember what I used. I think I used 3.3 or 3.5 or something for the mortgage. It's $3,500 a month or $42,000 a year. We'll get to that in a moment, but what equity is left over? What have we protected? What did we not put inside the house so that it can go earn a rate of return? And by the way, this is the no IRA plan. You'll see why in a minute. Well, we ended up with $920,000 in cash after we sold the first house. We had to give this to the new bank, $250,000. So we have $670,000 left over. And the first thing that always happens when we use a mortgage, especially with somebody that didn't have a mortgage before, is kind of the bad news. Some people think it's bad news. If you don't have an IRA, it could really feel like bad news. You go, oh my gosh, now I have to pay $42,000 a year. How am I going to do that? You just raised my bills. This is why I should have paid cash. I understand. We start out with a negative and we're just going to go fix it now. We just set aside very simply, forget what investments this can go into. It can go into a single premium immediate annuity that gives you $3,500 exactly every month plus your interest, or it could go into laddered CDs, a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year CD, or any number of different places, not the stock market. We don't want to put it in there and have it take a hit, but basically, even if you set it aside in the bank, it still works. We just set aside 5 times that number, just the first 5 years of mortgage payments for 60 months. You are 100% guaranteed that you're going to be able to make your mortgage payment. And this is a type of laddering strategy. If you have ever looked at laddering for your retirement income, or kind of just setting aside saying for the first 5 years, this is what we're going to do. Well, remember this, we ended up with $670,000. Why? Sold a house, made a down payment, that was left. Now I got to set aside 5 years of the mortgage. So here's the equity that we've protected from putting inside of a house. This is what can go earn us interest in this plan. Having almost $500,000 working for you for the next 30, 40 years, or as long as you can live. If you're in your 40s, you might live another 60 years. That'd be awesome. Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Having this working for you is really important. It does some pretty incredible things. I won't teach it on this training. I have other trainings on this bucket that we use, the tool that we use, the place that we put the money, and why you can't give them $460,000 the first year. Why do we have to trickle it over 5 years to make the IRS happy so they don't charge you taxes? Because we want to grow this tax-free. We want a tax-deductible mortgage and tax-free growth. Tax-free cost of 3.5%, tax-free growth of 6 or 7, killer arbitrage. But this is our funding plan. $460,000 left over 5 years. And then just take a note. We have more house. So in this plan, we were going to leave the heirs $5.2 million worth of house. We're allowed to live in a nicer home. This is pretty consistent with this type of strategy. And so we leave more behind. And the entire time we had a nicer lifestyle, which is just kind of cool. So here's an example. Again, you can use my other video to understand these tax-free buckets. There's only 3 places in the United States you can put money and earn tax-free returns. So it makes our choice pretty easy. One of them is dangerous and doesn't pay very much. The other one's usually in the market. And this one, when the market goes down, you don't lose a penny. It's all tax-free growth, and it's been averaging 7 or 8% when built properly. So we use this bucket, obviously. You see it's averaging, or we're allowed to illustrate conservatively, 7.54. So when we look at a bucket like this, we say, hey, I'm going to fund it to comply with IRS guidelines. Let's just make this bigger, by the way, to make it easy. We put in 92, 92, 92, 92, 92. That's $460,000. Where did that come from? That came from right here. Why are we doing it? To comply with IRS guidelines. You'll see that in my other video. And then what is this? This is me saying this has to be budget neutral. I'm not going to ask you to spend more money. You're like, hey, have a mortgage and spend more money. Your life will be better. No, it won't. Life is not better when you spend more money. It needs to be budget neutral. We paid for the first 5 years of mortgage by setting a little bit aside. Now what happens here when that runs out? We're going to start taking out the cost of the mortgage. Now this will cover us even at conservative returns. This is way less than these tools have actually earned. We're not even allowed to show what these tools have earned. We also are not allowed to show real rate of return inside of here, where you're borrowing at 3.07 today and earning 9, 10, 11. We're not allowed to show that at all. As soon as I turn on the income, we have to pretend you're borrowing at 5 and earning 5.5. So there's a lot of conservative baloney built into here, just because we have to. We're not allowed to overpromise. We're forced to be ridiculously conservative. But even with the ridiculously conservative illustrations, this is covered until year 26. And all of a sudden I can just hear you, boo, Charlie, oh, you hurt me. I have 30 years of mortgage and you didn't pay. Boo. Well, I agree with you. I wish it went to 30 years. And I wish I could show you. I used to be able to. I wish I could show you the real rate of return. They'd let me show the arbitrage in here. But the reality of houses is if you buy a house here that's worth $1 million, even in 10 years, it's probably appreciated quite a bit. In 20 years, it's probably appreciated a lot. By year 26, it's actually appreciated a ton. Now, those of us who use this strategy, every time it appreciates and we got $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 stuck in our house, we just refinance it and take more money out and protect it. We rent our money and get it working for us. But let's just pretend you never did that. You were kind of doing a one and done strategy. You were wishing it was, budget neutral, and this thing actually performs at the ridiculously low conservative numbers that we have to show instead of reality. And you get out here to year 25 and you're like, I'm going to run out of money and can't make this mortgage payment, but I got 3 or 4 more years of mortgage payment. You have so many options. You could do a home equity line of credit, you could do a refinance, you could do a reverse mortgage, which are not bad. If somebody tells you reverse mortgages are bad, they have never done their research. It's probably one of the coolest tools available to Americans. There is no risk of anybody taking your house. It's exactly the same as any other mortgage you could possibly have. It just has an optional payment and 100% control. So this is not a problem. I just think it's honest to say, if you don't get the returns we've had in history, but what they're allowed to show, if you don't have a good spread on this, which today you'd be borrowing at 3.07 and earning, I guess the last 10 years was 13.5 or something crazy. But if you only, earned 5.5 and borrowed at 5, you're going to have to do a future refinance. Wah, wah, wah. That's what it is. But all along the way, if you happen to pass away, remember I said long life, short life, rough life, sick life, and into the next life is kind of important to me. If you happen to pass away, your family gets this completely tax-free death benefit. If you go into long-term care, you can spend this money, even though you only gave them 460. You got almost $1 million here to spend on nursing home care. So some pretty cool side benefits besides liquidity, safety, rate of return, and tax deductions. But this still works. It's my least favorite type of plan. Most people don't show up with just $1 million house paid off and literally nothing in retirement accounts. So it's pretty uncommon, but can it be done when you're house rich and cash poor? Yeah, I've done this for people up to 81 years old, because smart financial decisions are smart financial decisions for any age. Age doesn't matter. It's not about, math is not age dependent. 4 plus 4 is 8 if you're 23, but if you're 81, 4 plus 4 is not, no, it doesn't work like that. It's just math. Now pretend someone has a small IRA. And if you remember from my picture over here, that means about $300,000. And I'm kind of doing that number on purpose. You'll see why in a minute. Same thing. Sell $1 million house. You got 8% payments. You get 920. Make a down payment on this beautiful new $1 million house. By the way, my third book is called Better House, Lower Taxes. I didn't show it, but it's about this strategy. You could buy a house for 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 million, and we could make it work probably. If you want to live in a beautiful house and keep your budget the same, that's fine. But $1 million house, 25% down payment. So we have that $750,000 deductible mortgage in the background. We've got this guy right here. Now notice what's missing. I don't have a 5-year set aside. Why, Charlie? Why don't we have to set aside the money to pay for the mortgage? Because here's the magic. Here's the magic I found studying all 5 industries, especially tax planning. If you have pre-tax money sitting inside of an IRA, 401k, 403b, pension, or anything like that, if you have money that if you take it out, you will be paying income taxes. By the way, this also applies to non-qualified annuities. Any money you have inside of annuities, and that annuity is not an IRA, but you take money out of the annuity, it will be taxed like an IRA. That's the way it works with annuities. So any pre-tax retirement accounts, if we take that money out and you're supposed to pay income tax on it, but we use it to pay $42,000 of mortgage payments in the beginning of a 30-year fixed mortgage, it's mostly interest, which means it's mostly tax deductible. If we use this taxable income to pay this tax deductible mortgage, we have basically cleansed almost 100% of the taxes on these distributions. Using mortgage planning is a way to get the money out of your pre-tax investments without paying taxes. It is awesome. Do not let anybody tell you that having mortgage debt is bad or that you should postpone taxes to a later date when you'll be in a lower tax bracket. Neither of those are really turning out to be true. So what I'm showing you here is a $300,000 IRA could easily support these 5 payments. I don't even think I added them up myself. What was it from last time? 210, something like that. 210. We actually, without earning interest, we could even go more years. We could go 2 or 3 more years, but I'm going to show you, even if we just use it for the first 5 years, what beautiful thing this would accomplish in your equity savings account bucket. So now, instead of having just this amount left over, because we had to set that aside, our mortgage is being covered by another asset for tax reasons, for tax efficiencies. Now we have all this money. That divided by 5 to comply with IRS guidelines. You don't have to understand now. I've got videos on it, or we'll teach it to you. But now we have a lot more money to go in. So let's close that one we're done with and take a look at this. A couple things we could do here. We've got the IRA payment for the first 5 years. So we fund. Let's make it bigger. Don't forget to make it bigger. Make it bigger. We fund. And then we say, hey, can you pay my mortgage for me? So this is budget neutral. And then watch what happens. We get out here to year 30. There's no more mortgage after this. If you keep taking $42,000, now, does everybody live till 90? No. Will inflation chew into your income at 90? Do you need to pay more for gas and bread and milk and stuff? Yeah. So raises in income are pretty cool. What else happens in your 80s and 90s? Something called long-term care. Would it be nice to have extra money to pay for nursing homes and things like that, or just to give a bunch of money to your grandkids if that's what you wanted? Yeah, extra money is always great. So I can keep taking $42,000 every year and there's no mortgage and I just get to keep it. But boom, look at even showing crazy conservative, throw the baby out with the bathwater. This has been our punishment for bad financial advisors exaggerating numbers. Even showing the low returns and crazy high interest rates that I have to show, we could then turn on an income for almost $140,000 a year, 100% tax-free for as long as you can live. Take your vitamins and start eating organic because the money's coming. But you don't have to wait. This is awesome. He gave him $670,000 of home equity for a budget neutral plan that costs exactly the same, but saves you a bunch of money on your IRA. And if you pass away, your family gets $1.4 million completely tax-free. Or if you go into a nursing home, you can use this money while you're alive. And we created through the arbitrage an extra $140,000 a year for as long as you can live. That's awesome. put in 670 that's budget neutral and you get $2.5 million out of it. I like it. Can you live to 100? I don't know. You don't have to. What if we just did it this way? What if we just said, Charlie, I like the idea of not killing my sheep. I like the idea of my money working for me. I don't want $670,000 to be retired from earning compound interest and sitting inside my house doing absolutely nothing inside of an accidental inheritance plan. Because if you leave it in the house, who's getting the house? The kids. You're accidentally leaving an inheritance and saying, I don't need my money while I'm alive. It doesn't need to work for me. Let's just make the kids rich. Well, this would make them richer anyway. They get all the equity, plus they get this giant chunk of tax-free money. Why not live a little? Your healthiest years in retirement are the first 10 or 15 years before your body starts falling apart. Why would you have to do 42,000, 42,000, 42,000, then in your 90s, jack it up to 140 when nobody would want to get on an airplane and go 16 hours to Japan or whatever? I don't know if it's 16 hours to Japan, but I'm guessing. What about this? What about if you realize the fruits of your labor and your smart decisions right now in the 5th year, 6th year? Take out $60,000 a year. Again, crazy, exaggerated low numbers. That's fine. Let's just be conservative. What's your mortgage payment? $42,000. What's that mortgage payment doing for you? It's cleansing the taxes on your IRA distributions. It's already doing something cool. What else can it do for you? Give you, let me close that so I don't go there again, give you an extra $18,000 a year of tax-free income forever. Oops, I did it till age 30. I ran it till age 30. Yep. So I'm showing an extra 30 years of $18,000 a year, tax-free. Could you have some fun with a $1,500 a month play money budget, travel budget, give gifts to grandkids budget, date night budget, electronics budget, hot car budget, midlife crisis budget? Could you use an extra $1,500 a month completely tax-free for 30 years that you created using a budget neutral plan? And then in year 30, you don't have a mortgage anymore, so you don't even necessarily need it. We could make it last longer, but you don't need it. I will tell you my answer is 100% yes. The clients that I work with and the clients that I work with through agents that I partner with, all of them say, yeah, matter of fact, everyone says yes to this strategy. They just say it sounds too good to be true. Can you please teach me the pieces and bring me to where I believe in it? And we go, yes, which is why I run an educational company. Basically, I have podcasts and videos and books and things like that, because the truth will set you free. And people don't know what they don't know, and they just need the data. So of course we can give you that data. So that's kind of the small IRA plan, where you only have $300,000 and it can pay that first mortgage, pay the mortgage for the first 5, 6, 7 years. I showed 5 years. Now, if you have enough money inside of IRAs, 401ks, and 457s and pensions and things like that, if you have enough taxable income, we can actually pay the mortgage forever. 600,000, 500 to 600,000 is kind of a sweet spot. With $600,000, we can actually cover this mortgage cost for the entire 30 years. There are guaranteed income tools. It'll just give you a guarantee that you can have $42,000 a year of taxable income forever. Someone will also carry the risk. We call it retirement income insurance. We can teach you those tools, no problem. I use them all the time. Well, if the mortgage is covered from a $600,000 IRA, and that mortgage interest, especially in the first 15 years, is, cleansing most of the taxes on that, we still have this amount of money. So we still have the same contributions going in. What's the difference? The difference is we don't have to take anything out. So over here, you can just let it grow, grow, grow. So this money here, all of a sudden it's $714,000, even with conservative money. 10 years in, we got an extra $1 million. 20 years in, we got an extra $2 million. But remember, I had $60,000 of income here. I closed the illustration or else I could show it to you, but I had $60,000 of income on the last illustration. If you have no mortgage payment, you can just turn on the $60,000, $5,000 a month extra income from an arbitrage plan that's budget neutral and more conservative than what you were going to do if you paid off your house. What I want you to know is, and you can watch this video, I can send you the link. You can have a copy of my book. You can have a consultation with me at no charge. I've done more of this than any advisor on the planet. What I want you to know is there's a safer way to do it. One of the worst choices you could ever make. And I worked with a ton of really conservative people. I spent 22 years working with a very conservative religious group of people. I want you to know there's a safer, more conservative way to do this than paying cash for a house. And it also happens to be more profitable. So you're being a better steward of the money as well. There's infinite ways to do this. I'd love to take a peek at your situation. So get in touch through the person that showed you this and let's have a conversation and see what we can do.